Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live. This is episode 44. I was going to say 34. This is episode 44, and we're here tonight with Aniruddha Yadav. Am I saying Yadav correct?
Yeah, it's Yadav, but
Yadav.
you're close enough.
I'm close. I'm getting close, and I, as all of our listeners know, I tend to butcher some names here. I try my best to get these right, but we're here with Aniruddha, and he is the CEO of CaseMine. They're at CaseMine.com, and CaseMine they've got a product called CaseIQ. CaseIQ is the highly versatile legal research artificial intelligence. It uses its capabilities to enhance traditional legal research or move beyond mere keywords and retrieve relevant results using entire passages and briefs. And Aniruddha, am I correct in assuming that this is a contextual artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
Yeah, and please tell us a little bit about you. And I probably skipped ahead there a little bit, but tell us a little bit about you, and then let's get into the meat of the contextual artificial intelligence.
Okay, so when it comes to me, so most people in this field, most CEOs, they are lawyers by training. So I'm a little different. I'm a physicist by training, and then I have a couple of postdocs in other fields, which includes computational neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, where I come from is a little different.
Different than their standard legal tech founder.
Yeah, I guess that could really make things interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll how that happened.
Tell us where you studied and what your postdocs are in.
So I got my PhD in theoretical physics from LSU,
Okay.
and then my first postdoc, that was in Dallas at SMU, and that was for a year, and then I moved on to Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York. So I was there for quite a while, and I was doing computational neuroscience there. So understanding the brain using sort of computers to simulate a simpler brain and see what happens.
So the brain-computer interface work, is that what you were working on?
No, so if you look at the brain, it's a network of neurons. So
Mm-hmm.
neurons talk to each other. So what you do is, it's very complicated. Each neuron, it's a very complicated cell. So what you try to do is you try to create a simpler version on the computer.
Okay.
And then you create a network of these neurons, and then you let them talk to each other and try to see, what are the hallmarks of, cognition, or memory formation, or things like that. So you create a simpler model, a simpler network, and try to study that. So I'll talk a lot about networks because, coming to, common law,
Right.
so it's a complicated.
Your experience then in neural networking sounds like it took you into some mapping of the law. Is that right?
Yeah, because so there's a certain kind of mathematics that sort of goes into studying networks.
Mm-hmm.
So things can get really complicated, and then how do you understand what's going on? So similar kind of math is applicable here too. The networks are complicated, but not as complicated as what you would find in the brain. But then you could still use the same kind of tools to understand what's going on. And so that's what I initially saw. Okay, here's a network, and you have a network here too. So what can I do here? And not only that, so my mother's side of the family, they are all lawyers
Ah,
and judges. So I interact with them regularly, and so one of my uncles, so he was the chief justice of a state. Okay, so which is probably equivalent to the principal judge in a circuit court, I guess.
okay.
Uh,
Kind of a
so
chief justice.
yeah, so we used to talk regularly, about the legal system in India and elsewhere, and particularly in India, justice delivery is really slow, and so then that sort of got me thinking. Okay, how can I use what I already know, and love, and basically math, and
Right.
how could I use that to maybe solve some of these problems that exist, and then I already had this network thing in my mind going on. So how do you apply this math to the common law network of sort of judgments or other opinions in the US, and so that's how it all started
That's how
basically.
it began.
Yeah.
Okay. And so where does so your program, CaseIQ,
Uh-huh.
seems similar in some respects to other services that I've seen, such as Case
Mhm.
Text and Ross Intel. It
Yeah.
sounds like you've got a different spin on it, though, that yours says some things differently than those legal technology, artificial intelligence.
Uh, yeah, that would be correct. So because we are approaching this problem from a technology first sort of I mean, so I would say that we sort of are trying to get the technology right first, and then attack what we want to attack. So let me get into a more details about what I mean. So uh, for example, when you talk about contextual retrieval,
Mm-hmm.
so context could mean a lot of things. So uh, we do contextual retrieval, sort of we have been doing contextual retrieval for a while, so keywords are context too, but that is not a lot of information, so a couple of keywords, or a big phrase, uh, that's a good amount of information, but it's not a lot of information,
Mm-hmm.
so that's some kind of a context too. So then passages are context too, a paragraph, a couple of paragraphs, uh, and then a couple of pages, that's context too, and then a whole brief, for example, is a context too.
Mm-hmm.
So question is, you know, any AI, should be able to understand what's going on, regardless of what the context is. As humans, we understand keywords, we understand passages,
Mm-hmm.
and we understand, you know, whole briefs too. So, can you build something that understands equally well, what's going on across the spectrum, across all sizes of, what can be presented as a context? And that we thought was sort of lacking with products that are out there right now. Uh, um, So what we think we have is an AI that understands the context regardless of what you sort of feed it. So it's sort of mimicking a human uh, more, perhaps better than maybe what existing systems do. Uh, and that sort of takes you back to the kind of technology that was available. and maybe these other products were, came out. For example, so if you, I mean, in the tech world, IBM is, it's a big company,
Right.
and they came out with Watson,
Right.
and which won Jeopardy, and that was like maybe a decade back. It used to be in a state of the art then, okay, and now things have moved on, and things have changed. So a certain platform was maybe built on that kind of technology. So what would happen is then since you know Watson was initially a question answering system.
Excuse me. I'm watching the Facebook feed as well while we're doing this, so I'm keeping an eye on that.
Fine. So Watson was a question answering system. So when it comes to question answering, the question can't be too big. You can't have a question which is 2 pages long. Then it's not a question. So then what that kind of technology would do well with shorter passages. So
Right.
right.
Which was why Jeopardy was so perfect for that, right?
Yeah.
Short question, short answer.
So if you build a solution, on top of that kind of technology, then you would have a system that will do great with shorter passages. Okay, but maybe perhaps not that well with briefs or couple of pages. Then on the other hand, uh, there was a lot of research on something called topic modeling. Okay, so you can use that uh, you know sort of little algorithm, and obviously tune it, and other things can come into, and try and understand larger documents. So that will do pretty well with briefs, but then when it comes to smaller passages, that thing tends to sort of not do that well. So so the question is that, okay, you have these two things. Do you use both of them, and maybe then not do well with intermediate size things? So what we really had to do is abandon what exists, okay, and create a new sort of technology stack. So we have done our own sort of you know so I mean our company is sort of a it's more like a lab than a startup at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have come up with our own technology stack, has to be able to sort of do well across you know all these across the whole sort of spectrum of what a context can be. And so not to get into too much detail, but what we really do is we try sort of breaking up you know human thought, okay,
Right.
so into smaller pieces, uh, and there's a certain limit beyond which you can't go. So if you are given a
Such as like 100 pages of text or something.
yeah, so if you have 100 pages of text, it's full of thought, okay. So the smallest you can go is maybe a phrase, or what we call an engram, technically. Okay,
Yeah,
so
so I tested, for example, on your site tonight when I was preparing for our interview. I went to Justia or Find Law or something like that. I Very common court case in the U.S. that's been cited hundreds of times, thousands of times probably, is Roe v. Wade. So I went to the opinion and I grabbed a paragraph from the opinion. I pumped it in, and I got a result that looked like it was on point, where they had probably taken that part of the opinion and used it in this case. That I did in it was probably 3 sentences. So that, you're saying, would be probably one of the smaller amounts of data that I could input.
yeah. So this thing, so we have done quite a bit of testing on this. So this thing can even work on a couple of sentences, and And sometimes, if you feed it a sentence, we ask you, maybe just use, sort of traditional research. That would be a better way to, if you just have a sentence, or perhaps a phrase, it's better just to use, traditional tools. They work pretty good.
Okay.
But but if you have something larger, then maybe, uh, our AI can sort of understand, what's going on, and then
So if I
suggest.
had, for example, a memo of points and authorities,
Yeah,
then and I input that, then I may get significantly more data to work with.
yeah, yeah.
So I undershot in my tonight when I did my trial of it. I undershot. I chose probably too limited
Yeah, but
information.
so it should work. So if you compare it with other platforms that are out there, I mean, it should be doing better than them. But the more data you feed it, the better it will do. That's
Sure.
with humans too. So if you want to ask your colleague, okay, can you suggest me something? And if you give them a brief, they'd be able to help you, in a better way, rather than if you just maybe feed them a paragraph.
Sure, that makes sense. So where do you get the data for Case IQ?
So we have collected it, quite a few places. We regularly get data from the courts, and we bought some of it, you know, from a firm in India. So they collect a lot of data.
And so this is this Pacer data mostly that you're using, or different background?
Yeah, we use Pacer too.
You do, okay. I noticed the setup on the user interface. It looked similar to sort of what I've seen in Pacer before. That's what, but that may just be a common interface.
Yeah, I mean, you have the same kind of information. What's the citation, which date, and which court. So there are only a few ways to organize all of that.
Sure, sure. So, so if I input case law, that's one thing, but can I input a brief as well and get data back on that? Something I'm working on myself?
Yeah, you could. Yes, I mean, any legal document that you're working on. So you could upload a brief, maybe a complaint.
Sure.
A news article. That would work too.
Oh,
A moot court problem. So students in India do that quite a bit. So they get their moot court problems. They upload them,
ah.
and they get immediate answers. So
Ah,
that's
good
it.
for them.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So CaseMine is or Case IQ is the first tool from CaseMine, correct?
Yeah, sure. We have sort of built up other things too, on top of that. Um, so, there are a lot of companies out there, that do legal analytics. Okay. So that's basically, taking metadata from, system like Pacer, or, or the equivalent of that, with, state courts. Okay. And then, sort of analyzing, the metadata that's out there. What's the cause of action, what's the general area, and what was the outcome, and so on. So they do not go into the what the judge has written. Okay. So we thought, okay, maybe let's bridge the gap. So we actually analyze the text of opinions, and we have the capability to do that. And we also have metadata, because it's you can't ignore it. You get that with the opinions that you sort of index. So how can we sort of bridge the gap? So for example, now we have something called Judge IQ. Okay, so what you can do is you can upload any document that you're working on, related to your case, and then you can sort of uh, narrow it down by a particular judge. The results that you get. So, so if you're working on something, and there's a hearing in front of a particular judge, so how to maybe tailor your brief,
Oh,
what
okay.
that did. So I think perhaps Ravel Law you was doing something along those lines.
Sure.
but then they didn't have a contextual engine that they could interface with.
So
But I think we have both now.
you interface. So you have the context plus the judicial analytics, you have that ability. I see. Yeah, because I think Lex Machina had also worked on something similar, and they may have only done federal, but I don't know that they. So they don't. But they didn't. I'm not sure whether or not they had the contextual component.
So so what this really helps you do is sort of look in between. So at, at one end you have pure AI, so it knows what to do with text. On the other end you have analytics, and so what's there in between. So that sort of insight was missing, and so now you can maybe with this maybe start looking there too. So.
Okay, so CaseIQ, then you input your information, you input part of the brief, part of the case law, and you get your results related to that. Other cases, other briefs. What do you chart? Is that right? You can get case law briefs. Can you break it down by the document that you're looking for?
Yeah, so right now you can get case laws and briefs. So, but we are working on getting secondary material too. So there are a lot of firms in India that carry those.
Like treatises and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, Indian lawyers are very much interested in U.S. and U.K. case law. Because anything new, so they sort of look up to the UK and US, what's going on over there, and then so that's really important to them, and so that's why we think that we'll need to add maybe secondary material too. So we already have primary data,
right?
US and UK.
So you could maybe get amicus briefs and that type of information that some people use as
or perhaps new news articles, because since it's contextual engine, it's really easy for us, given a source of news, sort of see what is the right kind of news for let's say a particular opinion. So there might so that's easy to do once you have that kind of capability.
Okay, so tell us how then are you now trying to take CaseIQ to the market at this point?
So in India, so we have right now we have our hands full with India. So.
And do you have Indian attorneys using CaseIQ?
Yeah, they're loving it. So right now, I think maybe around 20% of the top 40 firms in India, law firms in India, are using it right now.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah, and
excellent.
then we have so-called senior advocates. I don't know what the US equivalent is, but a lot of them are using it. Initially, they were reluctant. What is this? I know the law better than anyone else, but then
right.
Yeah.
So, and are those paying customers for you right now?
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have an active. This tool is now active and revenue generating.
Yes,
that's fantastic.
And we have US and UK data, and it works amazing on that kind of that data too. And so now we have US people also using it. So
you do?
So we are not actively sort of marketing it in the US right now, but people are just coming to us and using it. So
well, that's good. That's very good to hear. So tell us how the price structure works for the tool. Is it just a monthly user subscription or?
Yeah, so right now it's a monthly subscription. I think it's around $150 a month.
Okay.
And I think we have a sort of a discount if you sign in for if you lock in for a year, and
sure.
And we have then with companies you have to negotiate. So that's that.
Sure. The larger the company, the more negotiation you get. And is it per user? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, per user,
So,
per user per month. Yeah.
okay. So it's a pretty straightforward
Yeah.
subscription-based service.
Yeah.
Excellent. And what about financing? And this is some people want to share. Are you actively pursuing financing in India or outside India to
I mean,
grow
we
the
are
business?
sort of bootstrapping. So, I sort of forgot to mention. So CaseMine is actually not a company. Okay. So the actual company is Gauge Data. Okay.
Okay.
So we do other things too. So we make sort of AI products for
A variety.
other people too. So this is just So this is just something we decided. Okay, we'll do for ourselves. CaseMine, because I wanted to do it.
So this was. It turned out it started as like a pet project of yours, and
Yeah.
turned into a tool that could. See,
Yeah.
yeah, I
So, so funding wise, I think we are sort of comfortable at this point. Just so Gauge,
self-funding it.
so Gauge Data is able to fund this right now.
Oh, okay. And so, what are some other projects? I know you come from a medical background.
So, so
So, what other projects does Gauge? And just for our listeners who are tuning in, if I do have a, forgive me, we do have a question here from one of our attorneys in the U.S. Will Norman asks, what type of attorneys in the U.S. are using it the most? Do you have a particular type of attorney in the U.S. that's using?
A lot of real estate people, use it for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Real estate attorneys are used in the U.S. Will is a criminal attorney here in the U.S. Um, any other questions? Will, just let us know. Uh, so, so you came from a medical background, and again, for anybody just tuning in, we're speaking with Aniruddha Yadav of CaseMine, and actually the company is Gauge Analytics, and CaseMine and CaseIQ are a portion of that company. And it is artificial intelligence for legal research. And so, what other projects does Gauge Analytics do then? Since you're like you mentioned, you're kind of a lab.
Yeah. So so this tag that we built, so that's sort of again we are thinking of doing this. So we build proprietary solutions for various companies that want to do something. So we
In the medical field, aerospace, or
anything anything data science related.
okay,
So we have we've been doing automated testing, automated compliance, and medical field. We're building a diagnostic tool based on this kind of technology. I mean, it's much harder when it comes to the medical domain because the constraints are very few. When it comes to law, you have more constraints. So
right,
it's easy to do it. So,
right. And the law has more constraints than
yeah, because
yeah, because of
yeah,
the ethical rules.
yeah, because you have a given body of case law, and then you have statutes, and so things are a little more codified and easier to handle. I mean, not saying that it's an easy thing to do. It's still very complicated, but maybe if you compare it to if you're making a diagnostic tool, so if someone sort of tells you what their symptoms are, can you guess what is it that's going on with them? It's that's a very hard problem compared to if I have a brief, what else should I have in the brief? That's maybe a little easier.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Certainly, the usage of some legal technology and the adoption seems to be a harder problem for people to
Yeah,
solve. But
that's correct. That's correct.
yeah,
Because the lawyers are used to maybe keywords, and then you have an entire context. So how do you make the jump? That.
that could be difficult. That's true. I mean, even most of our society is still stuck on the keyword search, aren't we?
Yeah,
Still
yeah,
heavily, because when we have a question, we go to Google and we type in keywords. We're used to that analysis. So the contextual search is a little bit less obvious to us.
correct. Yeah, yeah. But then people are coming around, so because if you can feed more information to a system, then you get better results. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So when somebody, so in fact, your system becomes smarter the more customers you get, correct? The more customers who input information, the more your system learns.
No, it's how smart it is depends on the amount of data it has been fed. So
So them inputting textual data or contextual
it,
data,
it, it doesn't matter too much.
theirs doesn't matter. It's where you're getting your source data from.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Because I was going to say that would probably lead to some concerns about attorney-client privilege
yeah,
and
correct. Yeah,
okay,
because one thing that so since people are uploading briefs, maybe in the US they are not a public doc. I mean, it's a public document, briefs. But
right.
in India, or the UK, the equivalent is a pleading, okay, and those are confidential. So you don't want to have anything to do with those. So people upload it and you destroy it, and that's it.
That's it. Sure. Okay. And where do you see the company? Where do you see CaseIQ and CaseMine, the subsection of Gauge Analytics, in say 6 or 12 months?
Okay, so we are adding more countries, so we're getting Australia and Canada and perhaps Singapore and Malaysia too, so because,
Are
then the
Singapore and
entry,
Malaysia also based on UK common law?
yeah,
They are. I did not know that.
I mean, so it was a British colony, Singapore, so
Yeah.
just like and Malaysia, so just like India and I mean, the US also started that way. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's why I knew India, Canada, Australia. I knew all those were based on UK common law, but I did not realize Malaysia and Singapore.
and then, we'd really love to, maybe, actively, sort of start marketing this thing in the US. But, I mean, India is still, something that, we really want to do well first. And then,
Sure, sure. So so you're hoping in the next 6 months, 12 months to maybe be marketing it more heavily in
yeah,
the U.S.
yeah.
Excellent. And we don't tend to go too terribly long here, about 30-35 minutes, and I think we've answered just about all my questions. I do want to let everybody know, and hey, thanks for joining Carol Williams, also in the U.S. She's an immigration attorney in the U.S. watching. um, do want to let everybody know that Ivan is not here tonight as a result of some as a loss in the family. So he'll probably be back on episode 45. And you've answered certainly all my questions. Is there anything we didn't cover that you'd wish to cover today?
I think we got all the main points. Maybe we touched
Okay,
all. Yeah.
good. So, Aniruddha, can you tell people where to find CaseMine
So,
online?
yeah, I mean, you're likely to, bump into CaseMine if you're searching for a case, So, but in case you don't, go on to www.casemine.com,
Okay.
and you can take it from there.
Yep, casemine.com. And I believe you guys are also on, it's at CaseMine Law on Twitter.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that's how we got in touch with Aniruddha. And is Twitter or is there an email on the site that they can reach info at CaseMine or anything?
Either way, so you could tweet to us, or there are a couple of emails on our site. So one is hello@casemine.com.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, you want to schedule something, you want to understand the nitty gritty of what's going on. Just shoot us an email, and we'd be happy to help you out.
Excellent. Excellent. I want to thank you for taking your time, morning your time, evening our time. It's about an 11-hour difference, I think.
Yeah.
And you're located in Mumbai?
No, we are in the national capital region, so that would be a suburb of Delhi, which is Noida.
Okay, Noida. Excellent. So we want to thank you again for being here.
And
Don't disappear after we stop recording, because I'll talk to you about a few things before before.
and it was great, chatting to you, and interacting with your audience, and had a nice time.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. We want everybody to come on here and have a nice time and talk about their legal tech. So our guest tonight was Aniruddha Yadav of CaseMine, actually Gauge Analytics, of which CaseMine is just a part, and their tool is CaseIQ. And that is it for episode 44 of Legal Tech Live. I'm Nick Rishwain, and I thank you for listening, or for our replay viewers for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.